PNR Networks is a member of Patreon. Show your love for our shows by joining our ongoing fundraising campaign and get some fantastic perks in return. Check it out and become a Patreon sponsor. You can sign up at patreon.com, patreon.com/PNR Networks. And thanks for your support.
This podcast is a member of the Blueberry Network. Blueberry. No E's. That's Blueberry, BLUBRRY.com. Blueberry.com.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
It's Kim versus TC in the battle of the lists.
My list is better.
My list is better.
My list is better.
No, it's not. My list is better.
Kim or TC, who has the better list? From Subject Cinema, this is Front Row 5 and 10 with Kim Brown and TC Kirkham.
Hi guys, welcome to another week on Front Row 5 and 10, brought to you by the good people that bring you Subject Cinema. That would be me and him, the me being Kim Brown.
And the him being TC Kirkham. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Front Row 5 and 10, where we bring you all kinds of crazy entertainment lists. And doing so again this week. If you'd like to get in on the action, we'd love to hear from you. Write to us at frontrow@pnrnetworks.com or subjectcinema@pnrnetworks.com.
Yep.
Drop us your ideas for lists for Front Row 5 and 10. If we use them, you'll get a prize of some sort.
Yes, you will.
And, of course, you'll get mentioned on the show.
Yes.
Alrighty, so this was yours.
Yes, it was. This was my idea for a
Very difficult.
It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be too. The top 10 most nail-bitingest scenes in movies. Now, what I mean by this are scenes where by the time this scene is over, you actually kind of sink back in your chair and you're like, you know, something happened on screen between two characters or one character or whomever, and it was so tense and you're so wound up and you're just completely like, something happened or I'm going to explode! You know, that kind of a scene. And everybody's had that happen to you for whatever reason, from whatever genre
of film. I don't know that mine
of
fall
film.
directly into that, but
Huh?
I don't know that mine fall directly
Well, no,
into that. But.
I'm sure they do. So since I came up with the list, you get to start.
All right. Well, I chose an unusual thing to do. I have an honorable mention this week, and I chose not to put it on my top 10 because it's not a film. It's a short film.
That's okay.
And it's the whole short film. It's just this kind of thing that you watch, and you can't take your eyes off of it.
Okay.
So you're always wondering what's happening with it. Bear with me because I have to use my phone for my list because I can't print it out and if I can't show it on the computer because Kim can see it then.
I wouldn't look, but you know.
You wouldn't look at me the whole show?
I would not look. Well, I wouldn't mean to look.
Yeah, I know.
You know.
My honorable mention is a short film from a few years ago called Feral. I don't know if you guys remember us talking about that, but this film left me in a puddle when it was over. It's about a young boy raised by wolves who's brought back to civilization, and it's an animated film, by the way, and trying to deal with working into society. This film made me bawl like crazy. And I was on the edge of my seat, and it's only 6 minutes long. You can see it on YouTube. Go look it up. It's called Feral. My number 10 is from a documentary. You don't know, most of mine are not from documentaries, but this one is, and I selected it because it's just one of those WTF moments you have in a film where you're sitting on your edge of your seat wondering, wow, what are they going to do next to this guy? And then they dropped the bomb. When we reviewed this movie, we admitted this movie is one great big Rickroll.
Yep.
My number 10, the courtroom revelation scene from the documentary Nuts. If you're not familiar with Nuts, it's about a gentleman from Texas who became famous in the 1920s by peddling a cure for impotence by implanting goat testicles into humans.
Yeah.
Only he wasn't really doing that. Although, all through the film, you're made to believe that this guy is on the side of right and the medical community is out to get him. Mm-hmm. And then in the middle of the courtroom, it suddenly dropped the bomb that, oh no, you're not really all you say you are. There's all this other stuff going on. And isn't this whatever? It's a real Perry Mason moment, and you're going,
yeah.
Oh my God, I did not see that coming.
Yeah, up till that point, you're with that film, you're like, it's the little guy versus big medicine, and then you realize the rug just got yanked out from under you. That's a great choice.
Yeah, it's a great film. You can find it on Amazon Prime, I believe. It is still out there for you to check out from 2014, I believe. The film. No, we saw that here, didn't we? Mm-hmm. It's 2015 then. Nuts. The Courtroom Revelation.
Okay.
Number 10.
Number 10 on my list almost happens. It doesn't quite happen, but it's very close. And the threat of it was so unnerving. My number 10 is from Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit, a film that not enough people saw, because we both enjoyed it quite a lot.
It was interesting.
The bad guy, Victor Sheverin, a Russian bad guy, played wonderfully, awfully by Kenneth Branagh, if that makes any sense.
Gleefully,
terribly. Yes, he always seems like he's one step...
No, not gleefully, terribly. Gleefully terrible.
He always seems like he's one step away from a hand rub and a moo-ha-ha.
Gleefully evil.
Gleefully evil. Very gleefully evil. He has the main character's love in a very uncomfortable position, and he intends to torture her as a way of getting Jack to, her name is Kathy. He intends to torture her to get Jack to give back some stolen data. And he's very calm about what he's going to do to her and what he's going to use on her. What he's going to use to torture her is not a knife or a gun or, anything like that. It's a light bulb. It's not even a lit light bulb. Now, I know some of you are going, huh? But when he's talking and forces Kathy to open her mouth by squeezing her neck, he's talking about the fact that he is going to put a light bulb into her mouth and force her to bite down on it. And goes into detail about what the chemicals and the glass...
We're talking one of those new CFL light bulbs.
40-watt bulbs.
There's the CFL,
yeah.
Isn't it? The fluorescent ones.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about what this is going to do to soft tissue, to enamel, to her lungs. And I'm just sitting there going, oh, God, please stop talking. Oh, God, please stop talking. Oh, for the love of God and all that's holy and decent, please stop talking. And I have seen enough
So you were wigged out by it.
I have seen enough horror movies that I have seen literally buckets of blood and haven't batted an eyelash. This had me cowering in the seat like a dog that had just been beaten. I was just like, oh God, please stop. Please, 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 please. My number 10, torture by light bulb threat from Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit.
Wow. Not everything I'm going to do is going to be like super thrilling, exciting, horrible. Mm-hmm. Because some nail-biting moments don't come from those kind of movies. Some of them, sometimes they just come from straight dramas or comedy dramas, like my number 9.
Okay.
This is one of those because I had fallen in love with the film from the very beginning, and you did too. And you have to explain exactly why the film is what it is. Number 9 is a street cat named Bob. And this is one of those movies that has to be explained. James is on the street. He's homeless. He's an addict. And he's trying to get his act together. And his social worker gets him a flat. And one day when he's in the tub, he hears a noise like somebody broke in. And it turns out to be this stray ginger cat. He names it Bob. They become a team. And so his life starts to pick up because Bob is rather insistent about sticking to James 24/7. Mm-hmm. At one point, James who is a busker and also works as doing other stuff, or will later in the movie. He carries Bob on his shoulder most of the time. Only in this particular instance, he's busking. Some kids make trouble. There's a dog there too. Bob gets spooked and runs off. And he's frantic. Bob and him are a team. Mm-hmm. He's looked all over the place for him, and he gets home hoping he'll be there, and he's not there. He looks out the window and sees these two guys standing on the street corner. These are the guys that used to give him drugs all the time. The pushers of the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And you're like, no. You're not going to go back to drugs. You got to get this through your... You don't do that. You're screaming at the screen, don't go! But he goes outside anyway, and he walks over the drug dealers, and he stands there for a minute. And they're, what are you doing? And you're sitting on the edge of your seat going, don't do it. And he looks at them, and he knows them, and they know him. Have you seen a ginger cat anywhere? He ran off this afternoon. He's about this big. I'm like, yes.
You release a breath you didn't realize you were holding. You do.
Luke Treadaway deserves every credit he gets for playing the real life story of author James Bowden and his cat Bob, who played himself in most of the movie. Mm-hmm. It's a delightful film, and if you've never seen it, rent it. And that scene just sits you on edge.
It does.
There's that beat. Number 9, a street cat named Bob.
Street cat named Bob is proof that angels don't always have wings or halos or trench coats. Hi, Supernatural fans. My number 9 is, it's very tense. It's a very tense scene, and you know something bad is going to happen, but you're not entirely sure when or where or what it is. But you know it's going to happen, and you know it's not going to be a good thing. My number 10 is from Skyfall. James
number
Bond...
9?
Huh?
Number
sorry,
9.
What did I say, 10?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, my number 9 is from Skyfall. James Bond has been captured by... Well, kind of let himself be captured by the henchman of the bad guy who has been...
I didn't even think of this one,
who has been trying to discredit and destroy the British Secret Service, and most specifically the head of the Secret Service, a woman who goes by M. We find out that this man used to be a spy for Britain, but was cut loose when it was thought that he was, lost for good. His name is Raul Silva, and he has got an island all to himself and his henchmen. And he has Bond brought in, forced into a chair, and they're just talking. And he's he doesn't threaten to strike Bond. He doesn't threaten to harm him, really. He's actually kind of almost trying to sway Bond over to his side. And this,
I think he's trying to seduce Bond.
There's that too. Well, there's that too. There's the whole part of the scene where, he makes some remark and Bond says something back, basically to the effect of, what makes you think I haven't been with a man?
Yeah.
And we get this back. Oh, Mr. Bond. And I'm sorry my voice isn't deep enough for Javier Bardem. Breath, estrogen.
It wasn't that deep anyway. It was right around the right register right there.
It's such... You're sitting there going, oh man, this is going to be bad. This is going to be very, very, very bad. It's just... it's really weird because there's a lot of tension in this scene, but it's not all the usual tension. It's a lot of sexual tension, and it gets very confusing. It's like stirs
and
up
very awkward.
It stirs up feelings that you're like, I don't know how I feel about this. Why am I getting turned on? Stop it, libido. My number 9, Bond meets Silva from Skyfall.
My number 8 could be actually given to practically any found footage film. Mm-hmm. Found footage films have a way of ending with no ending. When you think about it, because
usually something happens that stops the recording.
The only found footage film that ended good was, in my opinion, was Chronicle. It actually had an ending.
Yeah.
This film has an ending, and it's really great, but you're sitting on the edge of your seat wondering what's going on. In the 2010 Norwegian import Troll Hunter, we are at a cabin in Norway's northern country, and they are tracking a large troll at this point. The hero of the piece, of the student, what are they, reporters? Journalists?
Yeah, journalists.
Has been feeling sick for several days since he had an encounter with a troll earlier.
That ended with a bite.
Yeah. Well, they stopped and had a test done a day before, and the tests have come back. Thomas has rabies. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, wait a minute, what? Before anything else can happen, we hear these big footfalls, and you go out and see this 200-foot tall troll. Jotnar troll. And then they get rid of it, and then, of course, 5 or 6 cars come roaring up because Hans, the troll hunter's superiors, do not want him telling what he's doing to these students. So they grab their footage and sick and all and start running like crazy. And boom, you see the camera fall over, and that's the end of the film.
What? The government's involved in a cover-up?
And
How
I'm
could
like,
that be?
I'm sitting there thinking, oh, wait, we finally got away from this. They're going to get away with it. And it comes out, the students were never seen again. I'm like, oh, damn it. I don't know if it's that quite nail biter that like you're looking for. But it's like, and of course they had the little epilogue where one of the ministers talking about all the bear poachings going on, which is their cover story, says bluntly to the camera, there are trolls, and everybody laughs in there, and everybody in the audience laugh because it's a funny movie all the way through. Although there are some real good scares in it too. Number 8, the conclusion of Troll Hunter.
Okay. Number 8 on my list is definitely one of those scenes where you're like, oh, come on. You can tell how invested you get in a film when you wind up yelling at the film, even if you're in a movie theater and don't care that you look like something of a doofus.
Don't do that.
Well, it depends on... I don't mean yelling fire or something like that. I mean just being like, come on. My number 8 is from Jaws.
Oh, okay. Well, the whole audience does that when they show it again. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The scene that I'm talking about that is just so damn nail-biting is kind of early on in the film. Not terribly early. Everybody knows now that there is a killer shark out in the waters around Amity. And there is now a reward put out for this shark to be killed. Never mind that the shark is just doing what sharks do. It's just eating to survive. But, I know Kim is a tree-hugging hippie. Anyway, we see these two guys that are obviously from this area. And they go down to a local dock. And it's quite late at night. And they're talking about what they're doing. What they're doing is trying to catch the shark so they can claim the reward. They have decided they're going to try and catch the shark by taking this rather large, scary-looking hook and stabbing it into a big chunk of meat that one man complains is his wife's holiday roast. So they take the bait, 1, 2, 3, toss, and so they throw it in the water, splash, and it's very quiet for a second. And then all of a sudden, now this is on the end of a chain, rather thick chain. All of a sudden the chain gets pulled taut. And, it's like yank, 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 rip, pull, tear. And now we hear wood splintering. This shark is large enough that it has a hold of the meat, and it's not letting it go. Mm-hmm. The shark winds up collapsing the dock. One guy manages to he's still on what's left of the dock. The other guy is in the water. Now, the guy who is on what's left of the dock happens to look out into the water and see that what's left of the dock that was kind of going out to sea is now turning around, which means the shark is turning around. And guess what the shark is hearing? The shark is hearing splash, splash, splashity splash from this stupid idiot that decided to try and collect this reward. Sharks are attracted to sounds like that. The more you know. And the dock starts coming back, which means the shark is coming back.
You said that already.
Yeah.
Move on.
So the guy is telling his friend, don't turn around, just swim. And the guy is swimming as fast as he can as the dock is coming closer and closer and closer. You know, the other man's leaning over trying to grab his hand and pull him up, and he's getting pulled up and his boots are slipping, and you're just sitting there going, you know, you're just so sure that he's going to get grabbed and pulled screaming into the water, and then the rest of the dock just stops and floats by because there's nothing attached to it anymore. Mm-hmm. Because the shark gave up when the motion stopped in the water. Ah. And it's just one of those scenes where you're just sitting there going,
well,
you know.
They didn't take the dock back with it, so it must have gotten out of the hook, too.
Yeah, well, it finally got the hook off the rest of the meat, I guess. You know, got the meat and got it all off the hook and just decided, and this, like I said, the splashing was done. Right. So it's like, well, fine. And left. It's just one of those scenes where you're convinced you're about to see a human being be eaten alive, and it doesn't happen, and you're relieved. You're very relieved. But it's scary as hell. I think it's actually scarier than the scene that everybody talks about at the beginning when you see the girl get eaten in the midnight swim. That's scary. Yeah. But this is just, it's so awful because you know what's behind him and you know it's not going to stop. Mm. So my number 8, the holiday roast scene from Jaws.
Okay. My number 7 is, it won't be a surprise to anybody who read the book. But if you didn't read the book and you went to see the movie, it kind of jumps out at you. At the end of the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, this is the final installment of the group, split into 2 movies. At the end of Catching Fire, the second book, PETA was captured by the Capitol. And so Katniss has been by herself through most of Mockingjay, although she's working with District 13.
Not so much because she wants to.
Yeah, because she has to. At several points during the film, what is his name? The slimy character that Stanley Tucci plays, Felix
Cesar
Flickerman has PETA on with him, you know, saying, "Oh, you need to give up," blah 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 blah. It's all this stuff, and it's very
obvious he's been tortured. Yeah. He's so thin.
Yeah, there's also something in his eyes that make it look kind of wild. Well, at one point he tries to give them a message, and they go off the air, but they do get him rescued, and you go back. They bring him back to District 13 along with the girlfriend, Finnick's girlfriend.
Oh,
Joanna.
Annie.
Joanna.
Joanna.
So after they've, checked him out and are looking him over, and they tell Katniss, this is really bad. They've been giving him tracker jacker venom, which I'm assuming is some kind of mutated yellow jacket, I think they said. And
you remember the thing with the hornet's nest that killed that? That's what that is.
And they've been using this on him to torture him and brainwash him and all this stuff. So be really careful. And so she goes in to see him very carefully, and he's sitting in the chair very quietly and being looked over. And he hears her voice, and all of a sudden his eyes open, and there's several beats. And she's like, talking to him. And then, boom, without warning, his hands are around her throat and he's choking her to death. And they're trying to get him off, and what'd they finally end up hitting him with to knock him out?
It was a tray or something like that,
hard.
and they hit him hard.
He almost strangled Katniss to death, which is how you would strangle somebody.
Well,
I don't think you're going to leave them alive if you strangle them.
Not
that was
usually,
a really
no.
stupid phrase. It hits so suddenly that if you're not expecting it, as I was, because I checked the Wikipedia, boom, you jumped a million miles. I jumped too when we saw it, because you're thinking, "Oh God, what's coming?" Later on, at the end of the movie, we see him strapped to the table in the isolation room as they're trying to get him back to normal.
Yep.
And Katniss watching him. It's a really, really powerful scene, and it literally makes you jump in your seat. Number 7 from Mockingjay Part 1, The Hunger Games, Peeta attacks Katniss.
Okay. Number 7 on my list is one of these scenes that it's nerve. It's I would actually not even call it nail biting as much as nerve shredding. You're completely like during this scene. My number 7 is from the 1978 horror classic Halloween. Now,
there's a lot of those moments.
Yeah, it's like pick one. For me, the moment that is just so incredibly like, I need to go lie down. I'm so glad this comes at the end of the film, because I'm like, I don't think my nerves can take anymore. Now, by this point, Laurie has been attacked numerous times by this figure, Michael Myers, who we saw at the beginning of the film murder his sister Judith, when he was 6 years old. Michael's already killed most of Laurie's friends and is trying now to kill her. We've hit a point in the film where he has attacked her numerous times, and she thinks that she's either knocked him out or possibly killed him, or at least knocked him unconscious. She's too dazed to run away, and she leans up against a door frame. And we can see Michael behind her, lying completely still. And then, with no noise, he sits up. And he's looking straight ahead.
Oh, that's where the Undertaker got that gimmick. Okay.
And then he turns his head toward her. And we see him getting up. I shouldn't say we hear him, because he doesn't make a sound. And it's just one of those scenes where your hand is pressed up against your mouth, because you're trying not to scream and sound like a total puss, and you're dislocating the other shoulder, pointing wildly, being like, turn around, turn around, turn around, turn around. It is just horrible. The first time I saw that scene, I was like, I just can't. My nerves, I can't take it anymore. So my number 7, Michael's Not Dead, from Halloween.
My number 6 is from a movie that Kim is only partially liking. Although she liked it better the second time around.
Okay. Well, now I know what it is.
Yeah, from Cloverfield. Cloverfield is another found footage film in which a giant monster rampages through New York. Mm-hmm. And what happens to this little group of annoying yuppie friends at the time. At some point during their race away from the monster, or where they think is away from the monster, Rob, the protagonist in the film, gets a call from his once hopeful girlfriend. Now they just had a fight, Beth, who left his going away party because he's going to work for a company in Japan. And they decide to try and make it over to where Beth's apartment would be.
To rescue her.
They can't go by the street because the monster's there. So they duck down into, after the Brooklyn Bridge goes down and takes Rob's brother with it, they duck down into the nearest subway stop. Mm-hmm. We can see Rob calling his mom on the phone, telling them that Jason's been killed, and we see the girls Jessica Lucas and Lizzie Kaplan's characters, sitting there trying to figure out what's going on, while HUD, the cameraman, is filming this all. Rob calculates that it's only 1.5 miles up the subway tunnel to get there. Mm-hmm. So they decide they're going to walk up the subway tunnel. And they're kind of discussing things going on, and HUD's giving all these kind of weird little figures about different stuff, all mostly related to kaiju stuff. And then he's like, they start hearing something. And you're wondering what it is that they're hearing. Well,
it's kind of a weird clicking kind of sound.
And they're looking around, they don't see anything. And Rob tells HUD to turn on the night vision scope on the camera, because he's carrying little vision.
Worst decision
Yeah,
ever.
because out of the blue, out of the black, actually, come, I don't know, 5 or 6 of these ugly human-sized parasites, they're called. They're huge, and they have a couple of big fangs.
Big spider crab scary things. Ah.
And you're not, I mean, it's like, whoa! And so HUD and Marlena, Lizzie Kaplan's character, fight them off. I thought you were gonna piss your pants. I really did. When we were at the theater. I mean, everybody jumped like crazy. It's like, what the hell? I love this film, and I think it's a lot better than anybody gives it credit for, except the critics. The critics know it. It has a huge fan following, but it's moments like that make it work. Even you thought that moment worked.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did. And yes, I did almost. I was completely like, that's
you were not
it.
having
I
a
quit.
good night with that movie, because you were just, it was freaking you out. And it was freaking Jen out too.
I had a panic attack early on, and it got progressively worse from there.
But you liked it better the second time you saw it.
I did. You're right.
And so my number 6,
that's a good one,
is the tunnel. The parasites attack Rob and friends in Cloverfield. If you haven't seen it yet, go check out our tribute to Cloverfield at ManhattanHammerdown.com.
Okay.
Plug.
Yeah. Number 6 on my list is I will be honest and say the first time I saw this movie, I did not watch this scene because I was scared. I've seen it since. My number 6 is from Raiders of the Lost Ark, because I refuse to call it Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's not the title of it.
Because that's stupid.
That's not the title of it.
At the beginning of the film, we see Indiana Jones for the first time.
Can I ask you a question?
What?
Why is it stupid to call call Raiders Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, but it's absolutely imperative that you have to say Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope?
It was always
it's
there.
Star Wars, yeah, but it's Star Wars, Empire, Jedi. You don't need all the extra titles. You don't say Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, or Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. You just say Star Wars.
You don't.
I don't. Stacy doesn't, and she's a bigger Warzy than you. Anyway, you may continue.
It's not my fault I'm a better fan than both of you. You started it. Anyway, so
I dare you to tell her that.
No, I know. So Indy we get introduced to Indy at the beginning of the film, that he's brave and good with a whip. We know that he is trying to find some archaeological artifact that we know that another archaeologist, a man named Forrester, had been looking for in the same area, this area in, I believe, South America. But Forrester disappeared. Now, Indy is in this temple, fortress, whatever you'd call it, with one of the guides, played by Alfred Molina. Just one, because the other one tried to betray them earlier on, and Indy took care of him. Now, they're coming to a point where it's very dark where they are, except for this one area where there's this shaft of light. And the guide goes to go forward. Indy stops him. He can feel something's not right. He says, stay out of the light. He takes his hand that's got the whip in it and holds his hand up into the shaft of light, and then pulls it back really quickly, because all of a sudden there's this kind of a sound. This trap comes slamming down. It's basically like a tiger trap, bamboo with long pointy spear things on it, and it slams into the wall next to them, and there's a skeleton that's mostly rotted away, but it still has its eyeballs. Ew. And it's this other archaeologist, Forrester. Oh man, that scene drove me nuts. Because the first time I went to see this movie with Stacy, hi Stacy, she'd already seen it. She knows I hate jump scares, and she's like, there's something really scary that's going to happen. You have to close your eyes. I'll tell you when it's coming, so you close your eyes. I'm like, okay. We get to that scene. She doesn't tell me, and it happened, and I screamed bloody murder. So I did kind of see it, and she turns to me and goes, "Okay, you can close your eyes now."
Way to go, Stace.
My friends. It is one of the most tension-filled scenes, and there's also, there's stuff with spiders and all kinds of things, but you're just, because you know something is wrong, because you've got this whole dark corridor and this one shaft of light, I'm like, that's there for a reason. And we find out what it is. Mm-hmm. But man, you will bite off every nail on both hands. Mm-hmm. My number 6, Stay Out of the Light from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay. My number 5 is, and you're going to notice that there's quite a few things on here. Well, actually not too many. You guys know, obviously, from Catastrophe, Vortex, that I'm a disaster movie fan. So, disaster movies have lots of these moments in them. From 2015, in the film San Andreas, which is all about the entire disruption of California by the San Andreas Fault, the whole plot line is Ray, played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and his ex-wife, played by Carla Gugino, are in Los Angeles, and their daughter has flown up that morning to Los Angeles, to San Francisco, with ex-wife's new boyfriend, played by Ewan Gruffudd, and daughter played by what's her name? Alexandra Daddario. Mm-hmm. While she's there, she meets up with these couple of British brothers. This guy looking for a job with her soon-to-be stepfather and his pesky 10-year-old brother. Long story short, the earthquake happens, San Francisco and everything falls to hell, and they finally make contact with each other, and so they try to get to a high building where Dad and Mom can find them when they get to town, because they're like stealing all these manners of flying objects to fly from Los Angeles to San Francisco. But, of course, the major earthquake hits San Francisco. It triggers a huge tsunami, and the tsunami takes down a lot of these buildings at the waterfront. Blake, the daughter, and her friends from England run toward this new tower that's being built by her now dead, soon-to-be stepfather, who left her to die in the other building.
Yeah. He died, and he was a dick, so
he got smooshed. Care. It was funny.
It was funny. I laughed.
Yeah, you did. She actually watched this with me a few weeks ago. The building starts to collapse. The water's filling up. They actually do see them in the building eventually. But by this time, Blake has gotten herself in a room that she can't get out of because debris is blocking it, and it's filling up with water. This is the same way her younger sister died. Her older sister died. Mm-hmm. Sorry. And again,
which is what wrecked their parents' marriage.
Yeah, which wrecked the marriage. Ray dives off the boat that he's commandeered with his ex-wife. I can't remember her name. And he dives in and gets in the building. He tells the two boys to stay out of the way. Goes down, tries to get into her, but he can't find a way in. Well, when the building slides down even further and Mom sees them there, she takes the boat and rums it around and comes up and rams it into the glass through the window. They're able to get all of them on board, and they're standing there pumping Blake, who's already near drowned at this point, pumping her and pumping her and pumping her. And after a couple of minutes, Mom grabs his arm and says, "No, it's happened again. It's too late. She's gone." And the boys are on the boat too, and they're crying, and Mom's crying. Ray refuses to give up after that. He waits like 30 seconds and then tries it again. And the horse immediately this time, and Blake comes back to life. So the tension is there. Is the constant.
Is it going to work?
Yeah, is it going to work? Is she going to croak? It's near the end of the movie. You can't have your heroine croak, or can they? But this isn't the end of the story. That was in 2015. 1 year later, in the critically acclaimed Norwegian disaster film, The Wave, the same exact scene happens in a role reversal. In that movie, Sondre, the self-absorbed 17-year-old son of Christian, who doesn't want to move there, his family is moving away from where they live in Geringer, and Geringer is always threatened by this huge possible rock fall in one of the fjords. If the rock gives, it's going to send a 600-foot wave over the cities and towns near it. Well, of course, it's called The Wave. You kind of figure out what happened. Rockfall happens, wave hits the city. Christian and Julia, the daughter, were on their way out of town. Sondre had stayed behind with Mom at the hotel so she could finish up a couple days' work. She was a concierge there. Well, long story short, again, Sondre didn't hear the alarm. He was downstairs in the basement skateboarding with his headphones on. So Mom went down to find him. The basement floods. They're stuck in the basement. Christian finally does manage to find them, but they're panicky. Sondre's already watched his mother kill another man to save them because he was panicking and kept pushing them both underwater. So she wrapped her legs around him and just held him until he drowned, which could not have been easy because I guess that would probably be described as a mother making sure that her son doesn't get killed by this guy. They eventually get found. Christian gets into there, finds them, takes Mom out first, comes back for Sondre. But as he's getting close, he gets lost as he's taking Mom out. And by the time he gets back to Sondre, he has very little air left because they're underwater completely. And Christian has to share his air with him, just basically breath to breath. Sondre manages to get out of the water and then notices his father didn't follow him out of the water. So after getting a breath, he dives back into the water and pulls his father out and starts CPR on him. And Mom starts CPR on him, actually. And they're trying to get Christian to revive. And suddenly, they are just like, no, it's not going to work. And Sondre looks at her. Now he's feeling this enormous guilt that his father may croak because he was so selfish and wouldn't be able to do anything. He turns around, kind of muscles Mom aside, and keeps pumping until Dad revives with the whole coffin. The whole family ended up surviving. So it was the same scene in a role reversal.
Right.
Child for the parent instead of parent for the child. And they happened a year apart. They were probably being filmed at the same time. I know they weren't by the same writers, but it's the same basic scene. From San Andreas, Ray saves Blake, and from The Wave, Sondre saves Christian, both by CPR and mouth-to-mouth after a disastrous tsunami.
Okay.
That's not the last tsunami we're going to talk about, by the way. That's number 5.
Okay.
That's high.
Number 5 on my list is it's nail biting, but it's also, if you actually had your fingers in your mouth biting your nails, you might actually bite them off because you'd be so angry.
Ew.
My number 5 is from the original Night of the Living Dead. One of the best films ever made. One of the most frightening films ever made, in my opinion. We're at the end of the film, almost completely at the end. Ben, the lead, has been through hell. I don't really think you come up with another way to put it. He's been stuck in this house with all of these people that he didn't know until that night. And they're dealing with the fact that the dead have come back to life and started attacking and eating people. And besides dealing with, zombies, he has to deal with the prejudice of some of the people in the house because Ben happens to be an African American and the other people in the house happen to be white, and one of them happens to be an absolute a-hole. So we get to the end of the film. Ben has survived the night. Everybody else he was with has died. Or worse than died.
Yeah.
And trust me, that exists.
Yes, it does.
And he's actually in the cellar with 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
that he had to shoot in the head. So he locked himself in the cellar, and the undead shuffling around upstairs couldn't figure out how to get in because they couldn't. So we've hit because they're zombies, you know. So we're at morning. Ben has survived this ordeal. Outside, there are posses running around, killing the zombies. That doesn't make any sense. Ending the zombies,
re-killing
the zombies.
And they're not zombies in this film. They're ghouls. They're called
ghouls, which is not accurate, but we're not going to do it. We will not send...
They're not zombies either.
We will not send Kim on a horror movie.
No,
rant.
we will not.
All
This
right.
is not the show for it.
All right. So, anywho. So, there's these groups of armed people out there terminating zombies. There we go. By shooting them in the head. Now, we're watching this happen while we're cutting back and forth between the people outside who are rather indiscriminate about who they're shooting at, and Ben quietly he doesn't make any sound as he's getting out, opening the door of the cellar, going to the window, looking out the window. And this is all, I'm just sitting there going, because I was like, this isn't gonna end right. I know it's not gonna end right. And then, blam! Ben is mistaken for a ghoul and shot in the head and killed by a bunch of frickin' idiots that didn't bother to go, hey, are you a zombie? So Ben could go, no! And they could go, well, come on out of the house and look at this.
It's the ironic ending.
No, it's the George Romero ending, his whole thing, which was brilliant. But it's one of those, oh, this isn't going to end well. We're not going to get a happy ending. Blam! No, we're not going to get a happy ending. I mean, it's so it's nerve-wracking and soul-crushing. So, it's two things that just really make you want to go crawl in a liquor cabinet and lock the door behind you. My number 5, the it's so quiet moment at the end of Night of the Living Dead. Next for you.
Just giving you some silence.
Okay.
I mentioned a few minutes ago that we weren't done with tsunamis yet.
You did.
Number 4. If you haven't seen the movie Deep Impact, you don't know what a tsunami is. This thing is huge. The whole basic premise is there's a comet headed for Earth and it's going to destroy everything. In the midst of this, one of the people who have discovered the comet was a kid named Leo Biederman. And in the midst of all the lottery stuff that's announced by the government because he discovered it, he gets to go into a shelter with his parents. And he wants to bring his girlfriend with him, and they're like, well, if you get married, her and her family can come. So they get married, but they still won't let her come. So he, instead of going with his family, decides to stay out, find her, and get her back to safety. In the meantime, her parents, who have just had another baby, the disasters have started hitting. They're stuck on a crowded highway, and they see the giant comet coming into the atmosphere. This is part of the one that's been blown up and is about to hit in the Atlantic Ocean. Leo finds him just in time, and they insist that Sarah go with him and take her little sister with him, and, they'll face whatever happens. She doesn't want to go, but she does. And he talks her into getting on the back of the motorcycle he stole to go find her. And they start racing back the other way up the highway, just as you see this enormous wall of water headed for this highway. The next 15 minutes are spent with Leo and the baby and Sarah on the back of this bike as we see them frantically trying to outrun this gigantic wave that's coming down upon them. I saw this by myself at home on cable. Kim was not home. I'm really glad she wasn't. I was a freaking basket case. I sat there and bawled for the entire 20 minutes of this scene. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh my God. And yet each obstacle is making you jump and going, oh God, can't they get through this? Oh Jesus, isn't there, what else can this throw at him? Oh crap, that, okay. They did finally make it to safety. Of course, her parents were obliterated down the road a bit, but they did make it to safety, and of course, Earth survived to see another day with, Morgan Freeman as the president out there, giving a speech in Washington, D.C. as it's being rebuilt behind him. I'm like, okay, this scene, I don't think I've been that adrenaline pumped during a scene, and it's like almost continuous. You see, it stays on that for the entire time it's going. It's like, wow, okay, this is just one after another, after another, after another. I'm really glad I didn't see this film in the theater. I would have been a basket case. Number 4, The Race to Outrun the Tsunami by Leo and Sarah in Deep Impact, 1999.
Okay.
I think, 98.
Number 4 on my list is from a film that has a ton of nail-biting moments. But my moment isn't the one that you'd automatically assume that it is. Although it's a great nail-biting moment if you've never seen the film. Alfred Hitchcock's classic Psycho, like I said, has a ton of moments where you just feel like you're going to explode from sheer tension.
Boom!
But the moment for me that is just like, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Is not the moments everybody thinks of.
You said that already. You're repeating yourself. Stop repeating yourself.
For me, the most tension-packed moments of the film are when Lila Crane, the sister of Marion Crane, is searching the Bates home as Marion's boyfriend, Sam, is trying to keep Norman distracted by talking with him. Because Lila and Sam showed up at the motel pretending they were a couple. And Lila has broken into the Bates home, determined to speak to Norman's mother. Mm-hmm. Even though she's been told by the local sheriff Norman's mother has been dead for a number of years. So she's in the house. The whole time she's in the house, until she goes in the fruit cellar, and we're not going to touch that, she's up. We see her go upstairs, and since she's no one to speak to, she doesn't make any noise, and it's all done in silence with just the soundtrack playing over it. We see her go into what we're assuming is Norman's mother's room, because it seems to be the kind of a room that an older woman would have. The closet, the wardrobe's full of old lady clothes, and there's a scene, part of the scene, where there's motion behind her and she spins around gasping because she thinks it's someone else in the room. It turns out it's her reflection. That's terrifying. The first time that happened, I almost threw up all over the carpet. I got so scared. When she goes into Norman's room, if it's possible, it gets even worse. Because it's what we don't see that makes it really, like, why aren't we being shown this? What is it? She goes into Norman's room, and Norman's room looks like the room a child would sleep in. It's got, there's toys and stuffed animals, but it's not a welcoming sort of a room. It's very sad. I mean, there's a stuffed rabbit that looks like, and I love stuffed animals. I love stuffed animals. Even now, I love stuffed animals. I want to burn this rabbit. I want to torch this thing because it just looks so wrong.
Kim's opinion does not reflect that of Front Row 5 and 10 or any of us other stuffed animal loving persons.
Yeah. And it just looks wrong. But the part that I'm like, we see her pick up a book, and the book it's a hardcover book, but there's no writing on the spine. There's no writing on the front. And she opens the book, and the look on her face, it isn't horror or fear. It's revulsion and disgust. And I'm like, what is it? Come on, show it. I want to see what it is. Camera guy, get over her shoulder. I want it. And we never find out. And I'm just like...
Not even at the end of the film?
Nope.
Oh, well, that would have pissed me off.
I'm like... I mean, it's not a huge plot point.
The hack director Hitchcock is.
It's... Smack you. It's not a huge plot point, but it's such... There's so much menace in this scene. It rips your nerves to little teeny confetti shreds. Mm-hmm. So my number 4, Lila's search of the upstairs of the Bates house from Psycho.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Mine's completely away from that. My next one.
Well, that's fine.
My number 3. Sometimes the little films can make you think a little bit more. And this film obviously did because it won a ton of Poppy Awards when it was out. My number 3 is a scene from that 2016. I was trying to remember the first year we're in here. 2016 film Little Men. There is a scene. The movie premise is that Jake Jardine's grandfather passes away and leaves his family, his flat in Brooklyn. They've been living in Manhattan. They move into the home, and Jake meets Tony, the son of the lady who rents the dress shop downstairs. They instantly become inseparable and are best buds, even though they're complete opposites, polar opposites. Jake is like studious and shy, and Tony is outgoing and gregarious and wants to be an actor. Jake's an artist. All through the film, they end up doing more and more because there's a little bit of tension going on between their parents because Jake's aunt is pressuring his father to raise Tony's mom's rent out of her reach. Because, she's like, well, we can get 3 times as much from their stock.
His sister is a bitch. And so eventually,
as this plays out, the boys decide a campaign of silence. Tony won't speak to his mom. Jake isn't speaking to his parents. They don't understand what's going on. Finally, there's a last incident, and we see Lenore and Tony come upstairs, and Tony goes into Jake's room as Lenore is talking to Jake's parents. And suddenly, now they know about the eviction notice. The door of Tony's room, of Jake's room, bursts open, and Jake is talking a mile a minute, going, "What's going on? We're not going to do all this, and I'm sorry for not talking to you, and I don't understand about what they didn't call it an eviction. He called it something else, some other word, and was just, he was literally so hyped up. He was just talking and talking and talking, and slowly he runs down, and there's a 3-second beat, and then Jake just starts bawling. He falls into his dad's arms. And from that moment, Theo Taplitz can do no wrong in my book. Mm-hmm. That kid is amazing, and that scene just breaks your heart. Later on, after we see scenes later on where Lenore's dress shop is gone, Tony is not hanging out there anymore. He knows where Tony lives, but he doesn't go to see him. There's worry about that. They do run in. Well, he sees him later. At the museum. He got accepted at the school they both wanted to go to. Tony elected not to go there. And they see each other at a museum, and Jake thinks about talking to him and then stops himself. Goes back to his sketching, and the movie ends. Unfortunately, there is a final scene in the script which I would have loved to have seen them do, because Theo and Michael Barbieri were a golden team. They were terrific playing opposite each other. I just melted the second that was in there. Little Men is just one of the best, most underseen films of the past decade. And if you haven't seen it, it's available on Netflix. Please watch it. And watch the award-winning multi-award-winning performance from not just Theo, but also from Greg Kinnear, who plays his dad, the best role I've ever seen him in. Mm-hmm. And Michael and Theo were both on our Rising Stars list that year. Yep. Number 3 from Little Men, The Dam Breaks with Jake.
Okay. Number 3 on my list is from a film that I've mentioned numerous times. And again, it's not going to be the scene that you think it's going to be. From 2010, the amazingly, criminally underseen, in this country anyway, Animal Kingdom. A drama from Australia.
Well, it's now a hit series on TNT, adapted for Americans, but the original movie is still best.
Yep.
The original movie, finally, after 20 years in the business, made Jackie Weaver a household name, with reason. Go ahead, sorry.
A young man named Joshua Cody, who goes mostly by Jay, winds up coming to live with his relatives, who he's not seen probably since he was a baby, after his mother dies of a heroin overdose. The family that he's moving in with are not nice people. None of these people are good people. And when I say good, I mean, you can be a good person that does bad stuff. But these are bad people who do bad things. The worst of all of them is Andrew Cody, who goes by Pope. We're never told why.
Because he's the kingpin of the family.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
That was a common phrase for criminals back then.
Right. Pope, played by Ben Mendelsohn, is a stone-cold psychopath. He is one of the most terrifying characters I have ever seen on screen. Screw every single horror movie I've ever seen. I'd rather go on a moonlight walk with Dracula than be stuck in a brightly lit room with Pope. At the end of the film, after numerous people have been killed, Jay comes back home to his grandmother's asking if he can come back and stay.
He's been in witness protection because he was going to turn state's evidence on them.
Yes. Pope comes into the room and they sit there and he does all of the talking. And he's just kind of doing his usual, if you ever need somebody to talk to, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden, BAM! And Pope's brains are all over the wall because Jay has just shot him.
Do you want to tell them why?
Well, one of the people that Pope kills in the film, which are numerous, one of them was Jay's girlfriend.
Yeah, not a good idea.
No. You're watching this scene and you know it's going to end badly. You know it's going to end in violence. I figured it might end in a punch or something like that. I didn't know how it was going to end, but in seeing a man's brains splattered all over the wall, that did not occur to me. And in a weird way, it was almost a relief. Because it was like, oh, it's over, I can breathe. You know, it was that kind of nerve-munching scene. It was so like, oh, it's going to be bad, it's going to be bad, it's going to be bad, it's going to be bad. It was worse than I thought it was going to be. But now I can breathe, so it's okay. And he was a bad person anyway, and he deserved it. So, my number 3, Jay talking to Pope from Animal Kingdom.
Yeah. That movie was a revelation because it introduced a whole host of good...
There are so many moments in that film, though, that are just like, oh, by the time I walked out of there, I felt like a rag that had been wrung completely dry. I
have adored Ben Mendelsohn since this film. Mm-hmm. I have adored Jackie Weaver since this film.
Yep.
I like Sullivan Stapleton and Joel Edgerton too.
Yep.
And I'd
James
never
Fretchville,
seen
who played
James
Jay.
Fretchville is great.
Wow.
I've never been so repulsed by Guy Pearce, and he's supposed to be the good guy, and yet he did some pretty nasty things in this film himself. In the name of the law, you've got to see this film if you've never seen it. My number 2 is from the film that was at the top of my most recent Pantheon list, and it's it also won a ton of awards in 2012 when it came out. And the whole movie is one of my favorites, but there's a couple of scenes in this film that affect me and deeply every time I see it. The film is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. If you've never seen it, you need to. Terrific cast that includes Logan Lerman as Charlie, Emma Watson as Sam, Ezra Miller as Patrick. Thank you. And a few other characters and that we've also come to like, including Nina Dobrev as Charlie's older sister. And as he's gone through his freshman year in high school hanging out with Sam and Patrick, who are both seniors, and Samantha has just graduated, and he spends that evening with her. As she's leaving to go to this early college, which she has to do the very next day in order to make up for all the goofy stuff that got out of hand and almost lost out on going to college. She says something and touches Charlie in a way that sets off something that you don't expect. If you've not read we had not read the book, and I'm like, wow. Charlie gets home after we see 3 different versions of him walking up the street, which is kind of weird, and he calls his sister's friend. He knows his sister is over there, and he asks to speak to her, and she gets on the phone and says to her, I didn't kill
Aunt
Helen, did I? And she's like, what? And he's like, I've been thinking about things and I don't know what's going on. We find out, we've been seeing flashbacks of Charlie and his Aunt Helen throughout the entire film.
Who he was very close to.
Yeah, in more ways than I'm sure he wanted to be.
Yeah.
Because she keeps Charlie on the phone. She yells at her friend to call an ambulance and call the cops to get over to her house, because she's worried that Charlie's going to try and kill himself. His best friend had killed himself earlier that year, and so that's what set off the original problems. We find out in the hospital later that it comes to the realization. You see the parents and the mom and dad, just the faces and the look when they find out that Charlie has told his therapist that his Aunt Helen had molested him for a number of years. She was killed in a car accident, supposedly going to get his Christmas present, which is why he thought that way. And you hear this and you see the kind of jumble that's going on in Charlie's head, and then everything goes black, and you're like, what the hell? Before they come back and start talking about this. This movie has a number of these kind of moments in it all the way through, and the performances are just stupendous, and I can't imagine anybody seeing this film and not liking it. It won Clotrudis' Best Picture that year too, which floored me. I'm just like, wow. If you've never seen Perks of Being a Wallflower, it is a tour de force performance from Logan Lerman, as well as Ezra Miller, who won a lot of supporting actor awards from critics, and just stupendous all the way. Read the book. There's a lot of extras in the book that doesn't happen in the movie, but if you haven't read the book, see the movie first and then read the book. Number 2, Perks of Being a Wallflower. Okay.
My number 2 most nail-biting moment is a moment from another Hitchcock film, because he was just a master of screwing with people. From 1954's Rear Window. Another,
surprisingly, one of the films I've never seen. I need to do that one of these days.
Yeah, you need to. Rear Window is just an absolute tour de force of suspense, dealing with a man who is convinced that his neighbor across the way, the man being a photographer who's laid up with a broken leg, L.B. Jeffries, who goes by Jeff, he's convinced that his neighbor in the apartment building across the way, a man named Lars Thorwald, has murdered his wife. But he can't prove it, and the police think he's crazy, and he winds up getting help trying to figure out what happened to this woman, because Thorwald is acting suspicious as hell, and winds up getting help from his girlfriend Lisa. Lisa manages to get into Thorwald's apartment via the fire escape and gets in through an open window. Now, while all this is going on, Jeff is watching from his window in the apartment across the way. Thorwald comes back home, finds Lisa in his home, and grabs a hold of her. Jeff, in a panic, calls the police, who arrive and manage to say they don't even realize they're saving Lisa by arresting her for breaking and entering. Jeff is watching all of this, and he sees that Lisa is standing with her arms behind her back. And the way she's standing, she is moving one of her fingers, trying to get Jeff to look at it, and he's looking through I think it's a camera or binoculars, I don't remember at that point. He realizes she's got Mrs. Thorwald's wedding ring on. Now, Mrs. Thorwald didn't just get up and leave because she was bedridden, so why is her wedding ring not on her finger, and where is she? Now, where the suspense comes in, all of that was really suspenseful. The suspense gets ratcheted up to 14 when we see Thorwald looking at Lisa, and all of a sudden he looks up. He is looking at Jeff, looking at him from across the way. But the way the scene is set up, he's not only looking at Jeff, he's looking at us, the audience. And it's just that cold splash of water. Holy crap, the murderer knows we know. Mm-hmm. And since the person who's playing the murderer is the great Raymond Burr, who could really pull off the intimidating
with blonde
look.
hair.
It's more white.
Is it white?
Blonde.
Well, white, blonde,
yeah.
white, whatever. Yeah.
And he's just looking across the way, and his eyes get kind of slightly narrow, not completely, but enough that you're sitting there going, "Oh F, oh F, oh F, oh F." It is such a scary scene. It's so like, oh man, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? So my number 2 moment, Thorwald knows from rear window.
My number 1 is from a movie she doesn't like, so I'm going to have to just to kind of not look to her for help with this. But I first saw this scene is in the first trailer for the film. And it is nail-biting to the nth degree. In the film Tom at the Farm, Tom, played by Xavier Dolan, has gone away from his home in the city, presumably Montreal, to the farm owned by his late lover's mother, and whose brother also lives with her. His lover has been killed in a traffic accident, and he's going as a friend. Problem is, Mom didn't know Guillaume was gay. Brother Francis did. At least they played around together. It's later intimated. Francis does this whole threatening Tom scene a couple of times, and then as they're headed back to the farm, Tom is riding with Francis and Mom back to the farm after they drop Mom off. Francis bolts and Tom bolts, and it goes black. And then we see him and we hear him running through a cornfield. Mm-hmm. As he emerges into a clearing, his glasses are broken, and you can see cuts and scrapes and bruises on him. He's breathing really, really heavily, looking around, wondering what's going to happen next.
Did Francis follow him into the cornfield, and if he did, what is he going to do to him?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's beats and more beats. Wham! And Francis has him down on the ground, then takes him back to the local hospital to get patched up. But it's a really, I can't really explain the scene without taking 20 minutes to explain the movie, because the movie is extremely convoluted. But it is Oh my God, I nearly jumped out of my seat just watching the trailer. The whole movie is filled with moments like that, and there are a number of them throughout the film. And that
Except for the end, which is intensely unsatisfying.
According to her.
According to me?
I get the end, which is continued through the end credits.
Oh, I get the end. I just don't like it.
What else was he supposed to do? Anyway, we've been arguing about the end of Tom and the Farm for 3 years. We'll never be satisfied. Just like the end of The Prestige. Anyway, my number one nail-biting moment of all time from 2015's masterpiece and Poppy Best Picture winner, Tom at the Farm, the cornfield scene.
Okay. My number one nail-biting moment is in the trailer, but it's cut so it's different from what you get in the film.
Oh, okay.
This moment, and this was a problem because this was kind of early in the film, and by then I was so wound up from this one scene, I thought I was going to be sick. And I was like, I can't be sick. If I'm sick this early in the movie, everyone else is going to be mad at me.
Okay.
So I was like swallowing the stress vomit.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see this until 2008, more's the pity. From the Coen brothers' No Country for Old Men.
We saw it after the first year, after we'd done our Poppies and Roses.
Yeah.
We saw it while it was still in the theater.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Once again, Javier Bardem, you do things to me, sir.
He's an intense individual.
Yeah.
Although he can do sucky films, see Pirates of the Caribbean.
I liked him in that.
I didn't say I didn't like him in that. I'm saying the film was bad. It wasn't terrific.
And I like him because he seems like such a nice person, in real life. Mm-hmm. But Javier, rescue a kitten. Please.
He's done good guy roles.
Please.
Here and there.
Anyway. The time is 1980. The place is Texas. And Anton Chigurh has begun what is going to, by the end of this film, I could fairly cut a bloody swath through the state of Texas. He is an enforcer for some very bad people in Mexico, and he has, by this point, already murdered a deputy sheriff to get out of custody, and has killed a man to take his car, and killed him in one of the most what the hell ways I've ever seen, by killing him with something called a captive bolt pistol, which is apparently some kind of device that they use to put down cows. Mm-hmm. It's this, I don't know how you describe it. It's an
air compressor with a spike with
a bolt. It's got an actual bolt,
and it drives the bolt into the cow's brain, which kills it.
Yeah.
It can do that to a human too.
That works really well on people too, and I think people's skulls are probably less thick than cows. Mm-hmm. Most people.
The idea is that it's painless to the cow. They don't even know what's happening.
Yeah. But it's completely like this guy is completely bat guano crazy. And we have a scene where he goes into a gas station and is, getting some gas and get some food. And the man behind the gas station counter, elderly gentleman, seems friendly enough. And tries to make small talk with him. Don't make small talk with psychopaths. It rarely works out for the small talk maker. And we get this whole scene where he asks this gentleman, how much have you ever lost on a coin toss? And it goes from there. He flips a coin, tells the man to call it, and won't tell the man what he will lose if he's wrong. By the end of this scene, I was almost weeping from stress. I mean, I have a very delicate constitution, and I was just...
You'd be hard-pressed to know it sometimes.
Stop that.
Well, it's the truth. Anyway.
But I do about some things. And like I said, I was almost fear vomiting by the end of this scene. When it turns out the man is correct about guessing whether it's heads or tails, Chigurh tells him to keep that coin, but don't ever spend it. That's your lucky coin. He doesn't tell him why it's his lucky coin. We're pretty sure it's because it just saved his life. It's just one of these scenes where you're almost tearing at your hair and screaming because the tension is unfriggin' bearable. So my number one most nail-bitingest scene, the gas station coin toss from No Country for Old Men.
Okay, my top 10 in order, recap. Number 10, Nuts, the courtroom revelation, the documentary, not the Barbra Streisand film. Number 8, A Street Cat Named Bob, when Bob gets lost and James goes to his pushers on the street. Number 8, Troll Hunter, the conclusion of the film. Number 7, PETA Attacks Katniss, the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. Number 6, The Attack in the Tunnel, Cloverfield. Number 5, Ty, San Andreas, and The Wave. Characters are racing to save loved ones with CPR and such. Number 4, Deep Impact, the race to outrun the tsunami. Number 3, Jake finds out from Tony about the eviction and his reaction. Number 2, Perks of Being Wallflower, Charlie's breakdown and the after effects. And number 1, Tom at the Farm, the cornfield scene.
Okay. My top 10 from 10 to 1, Torture by Light Bulb Threat from Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit. Number 9, Bond Meets Silva from Skyfall. Number 8, Holiday Roast as Bait from Jaws. Number 7, Michael's Not Dead from Halloween. Number 6, Stay Out of the Light from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Number 5, It's So Quiet from Night of the Living Dead. Number 4, Lila's Search of the Upstairs at the Bates House, Psycho. Number 3, Jay Talking to Pope from Animal Kingdom. Number 2, Thorwald Knows from Rear Window. And number 1, The Gas Station Coin Toss from No Country for Old Men.
That was a pretty good list.
I thought it was great, and your list is terrific.
So was yours. I got a lot of stuff that I actually thought, when I hear them, I'm like, yeah, that fits. Yeah, that fits. So we hope you will enjoy and join in. We hope you enjoy our countdowns, and we hope you'll join in and participate by sending us some ideas for lists at front row at PNRNetworks.com or Subject Cinema at PNRNetworks.com. And if you do and we use it, only will you get credit on the website and on the show. You get a prize of some sort, and we really hope that you'll take part.
Yep.
Okay, my turn. This will be in 2 weeks. We will not be here on the 22nd. We will be back on the 30th. I think it's the 22nd. Yeah, 22nd. 29th. We'll be back on the 29th. On the 29th, we will be here. And I don't think we've done this before. If we have, we'll substitute something else. But I don't remember doing it before, and I thought it would be fun because we both love them. Our top 10 music videos of all time.
Sounds great. We've never done that.
And because this is going to be difficult, there are hundreds of good music videos out there.
Yes, there are.
Some of my favorites might surprise people.
Yep.
Yours is going to be hair metal, hair metal, hair metal, hair metal, hair metal, hair metal, and hair metal. Oh, yeah, and hair metal. So, and hair metal. I just know how you are.
Maybe. Now, do these have to be music videos that are just from MTV, or can they be music videos from, like, the internet?
What do you mean?
Somebody, like, who did a YouTube video or something.
No, these are music videos by musical artists that have released music videos. If it's an official music video that's been put on YouTube, yes, that's fine.
All right.
Because it's of all time.
Okay.
So, but it can't be like somebody pasting together something on YouTube. That doesn't work.
All right.
Has to be an official music video
time.
of all time. That includes the videos from the 50s and 60s too, that were very few and far between seen here in America. So, anyway, it'll be fun, and that's in 2 weeks. We have a lot going on the next week. If you haven't been over to eCinemaBoston and are interested in festival films, oh boy, hold on, because you're about to get hit by a festival tsunami. The 2018 Boston Spring the Festival is about to start. We have 9 festivals in 6 weeks. 5 of them are on the same weekend. We're going to have coverage of all of them in some way, shape, or form, and we hope you'll check that out if you like films and want to keep up with it. There'll be some original audio and video up from where we are and stuff too. And you can check that out exclusively at eCinemaBoston.com. eCinemaOne is our regular movie site, and we are slowly heading toward a complete revival of it in May. We're going to wait till after the festival season is over before we really take off on stuff, but we got some new columns coming, some cool new stuff in addition to all of our great podcasts, and we hope you'll check it out as well.
Yep.
Our podcasts...
I should also bring up real quick about the music video idea. We should limit it to one video per artist. Just, I'm just saying I think that's fair.
I don't think that'll be an issue.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying you can't have 10 Carpenters videos, so there.
No, I wouldn't probably actually consider Carpenter's videos because they were all pretty bad. As much as I love them, they were all pretty bad.
All right.
Our podcast.
Our podcast, yes. We have a singular podcast that we both do. I have Platinum Rose's Garden, which is my supernatural podcast. Right now, the show is on a teeny hiatus of 2 weeks, although next week there is a repeat. But you can go over there right now at PlatinumRosesGarden.com.
Catch up on the season.
And check up on, this season so far, which has been awesome. And I also have a wrestling podcast where I talk about wrestling and my feelings about certain things going on and give results and things like that. It's called Ring Around the Rosie, and it's at ringaroundtherosie.net. I will bring up neither show is safe for work.
And Platinum Rose's Garden is at platinumrosesgarden.com.
Yes, and you can also find me on at Twitter at platinumroselle.com. Platinumroselle at twitter.com. Sorry. And TC has a show that he does.
Catastrophe Vortex is back with new shows. I did a top 12 countdown this week of my favorite air disasters episodes and why I find them fascinating. Next week we're going to do Seconds from Disaster, and then we'll be off the following week, and then in April we'll be back with single movies again. So hope you'll join me for all the disasters in television and movies, and I mean that in a literal sense, not a a bad show way.
Yeah.
At CatastropheVortex.com.
Although speaking of disasters, that's this year. That's this month on Subject Cinema.
Oh yes, Subject Cinema all month long. It's masochistic March. Star Wars ripoffs.
Yes.
We've already endured Star Crash and Message from Space. Yet to come, Battle Beyond the Stars and the Turkish Star Wars, plus maybe one more. And we have a few other things. Subject Cinema this week on Saturday, next week a special time on Sunday, and then back to Saturday, because we got stuff with the festivals going on.
Yep.
So keep an eye out. More masochistic March on the way at subjectcinema.com. Also, don't forget the 2 mini shows from Subject Cinema. Our weekly look at home video releases on Tuesday, Digidex, and our weekly rundown of all the films hitting theaters, big or small, on 3-Minute Weekend, and both of those can be found at eCinemaOne.com or on our 3-Minute Weekend channel or over on our YouTube site.
Yep.
So definitely check out.
And we have other people that are part of our little happy family. That we have Eric and Valerie over at Cavebabble, who have a podcast where they talk about movies and music and games, and Cavebabble eats odd things and whatever else happens to be going on at that time. And there's Comic Grotto.
That's at cavebabble.com.
Yep, and there's Comic Grotto at comicgrotto.com with Aunt B and Pee Wee. They're 2 guys that love comics and comic book movies, and we hope you'll check them out as well. And we have something that TC put together, and we've all been involved with. It's a huge labor of love. It's called Manhattan Hammerdown. It was done to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the release of the film Cloverfield.
It's our look at what happened in New York that night from the news and emergency personnel perspectives. News reports, EAS alerts, and more. We hope you'll check it out. The full name is Manhattan Hammerdown As It Happened, and it is at ManhattanHammerdown.com, starring the stars of the PNRNetworks family, all of them. All the shows.
Everybody.
So please check it out and pass out the word if you like it, because we'd love to get the word out about it more out. And everything else, whatever you listen to, read, or whatever you do with the shows or our sites, please like, please subscribe, please share.
Yep.
And also, take the time to become a Patreon patron. We're now in absolutely desperate need of a new sound device. You guys may have noticed over the past few weeks that there's a buzzing in some of our shows. We thought it was the microphone. We unplugged. We thought it was Kim's microphone. We know it's not mine. We unplugged her cord. It turns out the buzzing is still there even with the cords unplugged. So that means it's the box.
Yeah.
It isn't the mic cord. And we desperately need to get a new mixer box. So please, now is the time to pick up. We got all of this coverage coming on eCinemaBoston. We got a whole bunch of other stuff planned. And we need your help to do it all successfully.
Yep.
So please become a Patreon patron. Go to patreon.com/PNRNetworks. $2 a month at the beginning. You can also go anywhere up to 100. We could use everything we can get, and it will make all of our shows and our sites better because that one donation covers everything PNR Networks does. It's not just per show or per site. If you're donating to Platinum Rose's Garden, you're donating to Subject Cinema, you're donating to Comic Grotto, you're donating to eCinemaOne, the Kirkham Report, and everything else. So please take the time to shoot us a couple bucks. We could really use it at patreon.com/PNRNetworks.
And I think that's going to wrap it up here for another week. So
another 2 weeks. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and we hope that you will enjoy our other shows in the meantime, and join us back here in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm T.C. Kirkham.
I'm Kim Brown, and we hope we can count on you to come back on our next show and help us count up our next list on Front Row 5 and 10.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Front Row 5 and 10 with Kim Brown and T.C. Kirkham.
Podcasting's choice. From coast to coast, continent to continent, right here 24/7.
PNR.